problems, think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Hey, another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Hey, another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Hey, another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt to the streets.
Hey, another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt to the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt to the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and
streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast. Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right.
Salt of the streets.
Another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's podcast.
Salt of the streets.
Upper left or the upper left? Oh, just upper left.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
Boom.
And we are live.
Indeed.
We are out here. This is Salt of the Streets live pre-show episode 109. I almost said 110.
Good. 110.
Yep,
Not quite.
Not quite. We are out here. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It is Friday. It's 4:20.
420.
Yeah.
Holy it's 420. We've never done that before, have we?
Blaze it.
Blaze
it. Smoke
Yeah.
them if you got them.
For you audio podcast listeners, I don't have any weed on me.
Well,
We're just making the sounds to pretend we are.
there you
just
go,
for
bud.
you. Oh, hey!
There you go.
I could use a little.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There we are. Okay. Well, again, thank you for joining us, everybody. We have a
Hell of a show.
fantastic show cooked up for you today. It was a grab bag show. This is a green crack cartridge.
Of course it is. Green crack is like
Delicious.
perfect.
Nice sativa. It's good. It's beautiful.
It's good
I
to
wanna
shake off,
give-
the stress from the weekend.
Yes.
Going into a nice long
Stress from the
holiday
week.
weekend.
Going into the weekend.
Yes, there we go. Stressful week. Couple weeks.
Yes.
But we good.
I'm going to start off by thanking Swell Blended. This sweatshirt came from him. This is the Swell Blended original. Got this
and
when
you
I was
know,
there.
And to
What?
show off Swole Blended,
Oh.
let's give them some free promo.
Boom!
Boom.
We're out here. Paul is doing a great job. So if you are in the Kitsap County area, go to swellblended.com. Schedule an appointment. Go there today. You can also buy one of these sweatshirts. It's fantastic.
I have a quick story about Paul.
Let's
but-
hear it.
Okay, so I one of my little worker bee minions came in this morning,
Minions.
looking all fresh. He's got a nice tight fade and all that. I was like, "Yo, would you just coming back from Swole Blended or what?" He's like, "Wait, I mean, like, no, I didn't, but like, wait, how do you know Paul?" I was like, "Oh, bro, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let me explain to you how
He's
this
one
is
of the
gonna go."
That's awesome.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is hilarious. Great cuts. Go to Paul. It's fantastic. He just did some coloring thing to get better at coloring hair, like a coloring
Oh,
course.
cool.
I saw. So,
Get some colors going on
you
up
want
in
to
the
get your shit colored, go see Swell Blended.
because I'm about to make an appointment with Paul this weekend.
Yeah.
Because look at this mop.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have him just kind of just do what he will with it.
Just do me up, bro.
Just do me up, Paul. I trust you.
Yeah.
I seen your work enough. His Instagram is fantastic. So
Yes.
Swole Blended.
Yeah, and he has that whole work page on his website. So
Oh, it's pretty great.
I want to start by, well, not start because we just already did that, but I want to address something. What's done watching, right? I
Indeed.
just don't want anyone to think that I gave up on this segment that I started. I ran into issues of copyrights and things that I didn't know were going to be a problem,
does
which
happen.
I just didn't consider it. But yeah, if I try and pull anything off of like HBO or Netflix or any of that shit, the screen goes black as soon as I hit record on my screen record. And so all I get is audio. And if I do YouTube videos, like after I do the first one, then you know what channel it is, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to figure this out, but I'm running into some logistical issues.
some possible legal issues that must be averted.
Exactly. Like when I did the Chernobyl one,
Oh yeah.
like those got blocked in like the UK and Ireland or something.
Yeah, there was a couple
because-
of them.
Yeah, because someone else owns the right to that property in those countries.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to figure it out, and we'll get back to it. But I'm getting much better at editing clips and video on my phone, so we're going to start seeing more clips from our show and things like that. They're going to show up. Candidly, quite frankly, I was extremely depressed last week, and watching myself on YouTube,
Probably
I couldn't
didn't
do
help.
it. I could not do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't
So,
want to do that either.
Yeah, so coming into the following week, feel good. I'm in a better place. So I'm going to be cutting some video from this next episode that we're going to see in Clippies, shorts, whatever you want to call them. I know Larry likes to call them shorts. So whatever you want to call them, they're
It's
going to
the
be
only
on
proper
Instagram.
time to wear shorts with baggage.
The only proper time to wear shorts. You're just a dad already. Okay.
Oh man.
I also want to eat crow a little bit
Ooh.
from the last episode.
Nom, 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 nom.
Property Brothers Part 2. right? So last time we were here, that was like my hill to die on, was talking shit about Property Brothers and all the whatever, right? So Jordan then laid out a bunch of. She read an article about the Property Brothers and how the show works, and apparently, the contracting brother Jonathan, per the rules of the show, actually has final say on shit that goes in the house. And so when I was talking shit last time about him saying like, oh, well, if I don't like it, I'm not going to put it in there. And I'm like, fuck you. If it's my house, if I want to put it in there, I'm going to put it in there. Yeah. So apparently he does have final say. And there's like they have a certain budget of contingency for things that come up in the house that they don't know about. And so they talked about like the inspection process and stuff like that. Said a lot of the same stuff that you did, that like they're not necessarily as helpful as you would think they are. And so I was like, all right, okay, all right, okay, all right, Jordan, okay, Jordan, all right.
It's okay. They're TV personalities. You shit on them as much as you want.
They're from Canada too. The show started in Canada,
so they deserve it even more.
And
They're
apparently,
watching a lot of How I Met Your Mother. Apparently.
And apparently houses in Canada are too expensive, and so people in America couldn't relate to the prices. But I've seen a bunch of people's budgets be like around $1 million, which seems like a lot of money to buy and renovate a house, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, we are talking about the socialist country of Canada, where houses are way too expensive, right?
But that's what I'm saying is the episodes they're doing in America, the people's budgets are still like $1 million, which is like, that's...
Well, maybe there's no Canadian millionaires. We don't know these things.
I don't know. I had those concerns.
Trudeau keeps them people down on a tight leash, you know. He's got them choked up.
I had those concerns about the billionaire Batman and Red Sun.
This is very true.
I'm like, how do you have a billionaire in a socialist country? I don't know that it happens.
Well, it only happens, I guess, if you're Batman, where you can kick everybody else's ass. I mean, he could be the most authoritarian person if he wanted to, because he could just kick your ass, and he's got all that bat gear. And,
yes.
I mean, come on now. You know, that's how anybody gets rich in an authoritarian company. Or a country. They just
bat gear.
They get their own version of bat gear. It usually involves like mobs of supporters with guns or some kind of institutional police force that just locks everybody up and throws them in a gulag. But
there's a new quote unquote video clip of Jordan Peterson that's been making the rounds. It's from several years ago, but it's a clip, maybe 3 minutes long, of him talking about the sentiment that people express that communism has just never been done right. You know?
Yes, this was back because he was giving a lecture at his school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that. I saw it made the rounds, and I had to consume.
Yes, and it's an excellent clip. If you guys haven't seen it, listeners, it's an excellent clip that I'm sure you can just Google, you know.
Yeah,
but he Dr. Peterson lays out just how ignorant that idea is, because you can see as evidence of the past, anybody in socialist communist systems that began it had all of the best intentions, and it was only towards the middle and the end that those people end up being shot or killed or hung or, you know, any number of things that happens because the people with ill intentions gain more power because they're willing to do terrible things and take advantage of the system to try and get there. So is this the clip that you...
Is it. Yeah, do we want to show it?
Yes.
It's 5 minutes long.
Let's do it.
And we could cut it off at any time.
Yes.
Background for what
maybe
you
I
guys
should not
really
hit the fast
so
forward
that was the first wind really that the West got of exactly what was happening in the Soviet Union. But even at that point, the bloody left-wing intellectuals in North America were so damn clueless, and in Europe, that they never paid much attention to it, with the exception of a certain number of people like George Orwell, who wrote 1984 and Animal Farm, which is of course a discussion. The main pig in Animal Farm is Stalin, of course, and
yes.
it's a story, an allegory about the Russian Revolution.
fantastic
whose basic
book.
motif is we're all equal, but of course all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Amen, brother.
And that's the motif of Animal Farm. So there had been warnings all the way through, right from the beginning of the Russian Revolution to the West about exactly what was going on. But because communist and Marxist ideology is very good at addling the weak minds of idiot intellectuals, there was a huge section of the population who was fomenting,
No,
I suppose,
that's not us.
against the standard, what would you call it?
We're not
political,
addled by that.
psychological and social order, who were absolutely committed to, you know, the ethic that's encased in statements like from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, which sounds perfectly wonderful if you think about it for about 15 seconds, but if you think about it for 6 months, becomes unbelievably murderous in its reach and intent.
Oh, yeah.
And so, anyways, the French, for whatever reason, seem to be particularly opaque to reason. I'll give you an example. So, the doctrine of Pol Pot in Cambodia that also killed about 6 million people. So what they did in Cambodia once the revolution occurred was decide that everyone in the city were parasites on the countryside, because the countryside full of farmers was where the primary production was taking place, and they regarded the city dwellers as parasites on that fundamental production. So they basically emptied out the cities and sent all the people in the cities out.
So that's an important, I think, aspect for the kind of the right side of the aisle to remember these days.
Work in the country as forced labor, and 6 million people died there. And the chief architect of that bloody project got his PhD from the Sorbonne and said exactly what he was going to do when he went back to Cambodia, was cheered along by the French intellectuals who thought that that was just a fine idea.
I mean, the French
So
can't even do
that's
Republic
all
right.
background
Come
for
on.
why I don't think any of you guys really know much about 20th century history. So anyways, what happened in the 1970s when Solzhenitsyn published the Gulag Archipelago was that it was so brilliant, the book, and so overwhelming in its emotional and intellectual and historical power, that it became impossible for anyone to continue to claim that Marxism/communism had any intellectual or ethical integrity whatsoever. It was done. It was done. And that's part of the reason why he won the Nobel Prize. And part of the reason, by the way, why the Soviet Union collapsed, because once word got out about exactly what was actually going on, there was no way of making a coherent argument in favor of, say, exporting the workers' revolution around the world. It was like the consequence of that was well documented by Solzhenitsyn. You see, the Western intellectuals tried to make excuses for what had happened in the Soviet Union by blaming it on Stalin's cult of personality, perversion of the original accurate Marxist doctrines. So they
never been
basically
true
said,
enough.
well, Lenin,
Yes.
had Lenin lived, because he died quite young and was replaced by Stalin, had Lenin lived, the promised utopia would have been delivered. But Solzhenitsyn, being an absolute genius, documented the relationship, number one, between the axioms of Marxist and communist thought and the laws that were generated primarily by Lenin, and the construction of these camps and the dekulakization and all the mass murders. He documented the causal relationship between them and laid them clearly at the feet, not of Stalin, but of Lenin. And so that was also a major blow, because it undermined the remaining argument of the left-wing, radical left-wing apologists in the West for the viability of Marxist/communist doctrines. And you still hear people today, many people, when they're faced with the, you know, if they're Marxist in their orientation and they're faced with the data pertaining to what happened in the Soviet Union, they'll say something like, well, that wasn't real Marxism. But one of the things that you might answer to that is, well, fine, except that in every bloody country in the world where that doctrine was implemented, regardless of the wide cultural differences between the cultures, say the Soviet Union, China, Cambodia, and so forth, exactly the same thing happened every time. And we still have a great example of that today in the form of North Korea. I don't know if you've ever looked at a map of the world at night. You know, you can get a map of the entire globe at night. You look at South Korea, it's lit up like jewels. It's nothing but light, like the east coast of the United States and Canada. And North Korea is dark. And the reason for that is that 50, 60 years of barbaric, communist, despotic rule means a country that's completely unindustrialized, where every single person is malnourished or starving to death, where everyone lives in terror all the time, and where there's nothing but the continual production of labor in labor camps, just like in the Soviet Union and Maoist China. So if we were willing to pay attention, we could still see examples of that today, and that's not an anomaly. North Korea is exactly what you'd expect given the doctrines upon which it's founded.
Make sure to follow that
So-
guy.
Yes.
So and that just speaks to how often he talks about that. To be honest, that wasn't not the clip that
No.
has been making the rounds, but here, camera's back. But it's easy enough to go back and make that same exact point. It's never been tried, it's never been done the right way. It's always what I hear. It's pretty common.
And we are going to talk later. Oh, this is a good time to lay out our topics this week. This was a
Word.
grab bag, right? So this week we had the grab bag going.
Some requests.
I accidentally brought that one to work, so we have just opened it up. We are going to talk about labor shortage, supposed labor shortage.
The labor shortage.
Okay. Labor shortage, right? This is fucking me up. It's been a long time.
Word. Totally understandable.
Labor shortage, we're going to be talking about George Floyd 1 year later, or the country 1 year after the death of George Floyd, or as ABC said, the public execution of George Floyd. I thought that was pretty interesting. We are going to talk about
Go
the
ABC.
lab leak hypothesis revisited, because just about 1 year ago today, around these times, I shared a video that talked about, gain of function research being done at the Wuhan lab, that was only a level 4 facility, and how it only made logical sense that something probably accidentally got out of there, not with malicious intent, because a shitload of Chinese people died, but because, there's like 6 or so events where the level 4 lab in Wuhan has already been marked negatively for their safety measures.
In the military, you'd call that a gig. You got
And
gigged multiple times.
In this video that I shared, it says, the only place that these coronaviruses are found are in bats that are 1,000 miles away from the Wuhan lab. And that was marked false 100% because those corona cells, the spike proteins, can also be found in pangolins. And so it was covered up and removed from the feed, like no one could see it, no one found it. And now, today, I read a fucking article last night from, like the New York Post or something. And they're talking about how these spike proteins exist only in bats that are found approximately 1,000 miles away from the Wuhan lab.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Because now, magically, I think the date was probably like last week about this time.
Yeah.
It's now it's been approved as a topic that you can discuss in public by our tech overlords and network runners. I mean, anybody who controls the flow of media right now, Alphabet and YouTube
Facebook
and all of them
shifted their policy around "quote unquote" the lab leak hypothesis, and people sharing information about that. They officially changed their policy where they're not going to fact check people who are saying that now because now it's possible. A year ago, the World Health Organization said that there was very little evidence that there was any chance that the coronavirus came from anything other than human or like animal to human transmission. Meaning, meaning that somebody ate some meat or some shit from an animal and it got them sick as fuck, and here we are, coronavirus.
Right. That was the wet market, all the handling of live animals.
The wet market, that's like a block or so, however far away from the level 4 biological research facility in Wuhan, right?
Yeah, it seems like really bad.
It's like down the block.
Really bad placement.
Super weird.
I don't get that one. I mean, that's what you get from centralized control. So,
So we're going to talk about the lab leak hypothesis. Zeke said that he had some takes. Zeke is going to be on this week. So
shout out Zeke.
Yeah, Zeke is going to be back on this week. He said he had some takes on some things that we said last week. So we're going to ask him about those things. We are going to talk about VAERS. Do you know how to pronounce this yet? Because
I don't.
I'm unsure how to pronounce it.
I've heard VAERS and VARS.
It is the Vaccine Adverse Effects Registry System, I think. Registration System, I believe, is what this acronym is for. And this was a topic requested to us this week. David Chipman, we're going to talk about David Chipman. That was another request. So let me stop here for a second, right? Because this is how important the position of ATF is, because ATF director, because it's been talked about a lot, even in the very beginning of the hearing, of just how crazy it is that we haven't had a legitimate verified or confirmed director of the ATF for decades, and we've only had 2 of them. It's so crazy. It's absurd. They do so much for this country. So much, it's so important that we decided to confirm David Chipman in a hearing with 5 other people that was 3 hours long, where every senator got 5 minutes to ask questions to 6 people.
It's so unimportant. You got to drown him out.
One of those other people was a federal judge who will sit there for a lifetime. All of these people had their confirmation hearings at the same day, at the same time, in the same room, 30 yards from the people who were asking the questions, even though nobody's wearing a mask anymore. You're all fine to be all on the up and up, but you still have to be 30 yards away from the people asking you questions. So there's a whole 5-minute delay because they can't get the goddamn microphones to work and they can't yell loud enough to get to the back of the room. That's where we are. That's how important this is. So we're going to talk about David Chipman. I have some questions. There's a picture of David Chipman that I have been unable to fully verify. Right?
Oh.
It's right. So, and I'm running into a lot of issues because the only thing that you can really turn to is like Snopes, right? As far as fact checking, is this picture real? And Snopes says this picture isn't real, and the information they cite is David Chipman in the hearing from 2 days ago saying that picture isn't real.
Well, that's what Snopes is now.
Right. So that's the only evidence that I can find that the picture of David Chipman, the alleged picture of David Chipman standing in front of the charred and burning bodies of men, women, and children at Waco is real. So I don't know for certain. I read several different articles that cited the picture and then also did not have corrections at the bottom of the article, which would indicate to me that the picture is real.
Yep.
Right? And he said the picture is real, but that's not an ATF agent, and that's not me. Really weird that there would be a dude in not full cami pants, and then like a green top, right? Like a PT shirt, an undershirt, whatever the fuck you call that, right? He's wearing that, but he's not in the ATF. He's not an ATF agent, but he is wearing that standing in front of the charred remains of Mount Carmel at Waco. But he's not an ATF agent.
Man, I wish that Waco documentary was still around.
Yeah.
They have footage of the guys that were dressed in whatever. You might see some people.
Isn't
dressed
that
like
interesting? Yeah. So
they're running cover on his Waco background. That's what's happening there.
Supposedly, he didn't show up at Waco until afterwards, and he was requested to be there because he had no connection to the case itself.
He was also involved at Ruby Ridge,
He
right?
was at Ruby Ridge. He was a special agent during Ruby Ridge, and he was a special agent during Waco.
Interesting.
So
I wonder what that's all about.
So there's nothing to say, with a legal background, there's nothing to say that as a special agent, he wouldn't be used in a legal capacity for the Waco case. There's nothing to say that, right?
Yep.
But it does seem odd. The timelines just don't seem to match up. You know what I'm saying?
It's probably because he was fucking there.
He says that he didn't arrive until afterwards. He says this picture is not of him. These articles that I read that cite this picture don't have any corrections saying that the picture is not real, which seems really weird because if you're a newspaper and you are writing things that are verifiably false about a potentially federal employee or director of a federal department, you could presumably get in a lot of trouble.
I mean,
right?
maybe a few years ago, but
so I think that that's really weird. So as a spokesperson for this podcast, for this show, I can neither confirm nor deny the true validity of that picture of what appears, and by all research other than David Chipman's perjurous testimony, because he lied multiple times while he was under oath during his confirmation testimony, that's the only place that I can find that it might not be real. This picture of David Chipman, alleged picture of David Chipman standing in front of the charred remains of women and children at Mount Carmel. And just to put it in perspective,
that one?
Yes, more children died in Waco than have died in any mass shooting in American history ever.
We'll just throw that real quick.
And they died at the hands. And so this is saying, no, Biden's ATF nominee did not pose at Waco.
Yeah.
But the only evidence that I have seen to verify that is his testimony saying that that isn't him. which doesn't
unreal.
seem like enough evidence to say that. You know what I'm saying? Because they even said this is a real picture. And that one's
I know.
not real. Yeah, that one's not real.
He was
But
doing a virtue signal that day, I remember.
He was doing. That's the one for his AMA.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
that's
his
right.
Ask Me Anything. In which, so we'll get into this later. But,
Yeah.
that will be one of the things that we're going to be talking about. It's going to be a big day today.
Yeah, well, like I feel like I could tell we're both a little fired up.
Yes.
I'm ready to just. I'm ready.
I have a question that I want to end this on.
Okay.
That's kind of what we've done the last couple of times. It's kind of dropped a question and then moved into the real show. So we talked the last time we were here about all these timelines that the Biden-Harris administration has been laying out. You know, the timelines that they want to get things done on. We want to see progress on this. A few of these timelines were they wanted to see a police bill signed by the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's death.
Yes.
That was earlier this week. We
Yep.
have not seen any movement on a police reform. Well, we have seen movement in the form of Tim Scott and Cory Booker discussing a police reform bill. We have not seen one come up for vote yet. We have not seen one come up for full debate yet. So as far as formal movement that the Biden administration seems to be looking for, at least when it comes to the infrastructure package, they're like, oh, we haven't heard from the Republicans yet, so I can't even say whether or not I would be, indicate whether or not I would be into something.
There was when you were on your way over here.
Yes.
I always pull up the Twitter feed right before you come over, and that news story was trending. The fact that it said the GOP kills George Floyd bill or something like that. So question:
no George Floyd bill, or no police bill by George Floyd's death anniversary. They also said that they wanted to see an infrastructure package in the president's office by Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah.
Memorial Day is Monday. I'm not thinking that we're going to see an infrastructure package on the president's desk on Monday.
No, man.
There has been a lot of concern, a lot of talk this last week about whether or not any of this is going to get done at all.
Yes.
The American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan, the police reform bill.
The budget of $6 trillion.
The budget
now.
of $6 trillion that runs off of the presumption that the American Families Plan and American Jobs Plan exist and are happening in America.
Yep. Because that raises taxes.
Which at this point in time, no one can verify. No one can validate that. So there are some serious questions of whether or not any other serious legislation is going to be passed over the next 3 years. And so I would be interested.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Midterms can always change things, obviously, because they can shift the balance in the House and the Senate. But
yes.
If I had to venture a guess, I would say the old roadblock, although sometimes more of a speed bump. Tim Pool's been using that a lot. Mitch McConnell is going to try to stop everything. And that might be the only thing that stops us from going over that fiscal cliff, adding another, 10, 12 trillion dollars to the debt overnight. That would do irreparable damage that we may not be able to come back from. So he might just be doing that.
Especially if they are coming at it from a fiscal perspective and are able to use the
I wasn't supposed
evidence,
to answer that, was I?
No, certainly you were. Certainly. Especially if they're able to use the evidence of inflation, rising interest rates, these things that we're seeing happen now that can only be hidden from that the Fed can only hide for so long.
Yes.
Right? The federal government can only force the Federal Reserve to artificially stimulate the economy for so long.
Yeah.
Eventually, they have to raise interest rates. Eventually, inflation will present itself.
Yes. Because it already is.
And if the Republicans are able to weaponize that in a totally positive way, I don't mean that in a negative way, but if they're able to weaponize that and continue with that, I don't see any way that they don't gain seats in the House and Senate in the midterms. And then there's no fucking way that any of that is getting done over the 2 years after that.
And I think that's already going to happen as it is, so that'll just add even more.
Yes.
But so for the uninitiated that are listening, right, we talked about the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the executive branch of government here, right? Who is the head of the White House Treasury Department?
Janet Yellen.
And where, I don't know if you actually know this, but I'm pretty sure we've talked about it.
Yes.
Where did she used to work before taking the federal government job?
Federal Reserve.
Yeah, she was the head of the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
Which is not a government agency, even though they work
Even though it
hand in
says
hand.
that,
but-
yeah, it says it's called the Federal Reserve. You
Yeah.
would think that.
And it's in their doctrine that they will stay apolitical and out of government and out of politics and all this. And obviously, I mean, it's just like what we talk about with the military industrial complex always coming over to the Defense Department
Yes.
and all that shit afterwards. I mean, it's the same deal, except this is, just currency in the entire economy. So it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. And to his credit, Jerome Powell has done a pretty good job. You know?
Yeah, I
He
mean,
got there. I think Trump put him in as
I think so.
as the head of the Fed, and he's done a pretty good job. He fought Trump on a lot of shit that was not going to be good for the economy. Like he kind of did his own thing, So I'm not mad at Jerome Powell.
Yeah, there we go.
He'd be doing what he can.
He's doing what he can.
But-
Current Fed chair.
But as you said, the way that they circumvent this oath or whatever of objectivity is during the time they serve, they are pretty objective.
Yeah.
They're doing what they can because they have to try and keep America afloat.
Because they're trying to get their next job, too.
Immediately afterwards, they start kissing the ring and they jump in
Yep.
the federal government, the executive branch, and they start working with the people they used to work with. So, yes. So maybe at the time, they are very objective.
Maybe.
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 We will all find out.
Yeah.
And, for good or for ill.
So all these people should have to reapply for their jobs.
Maybe we should, from the Fed, we should have like they have in the military. Like you can't be like the Secretary of Defense. Like you have to wait 4 years or something like that,
Well,
or 6
unless you
years,
get a
unless you get a
special
waiver.
exemption like Oscar.
Yeah, because we talked about that
Yeah.
before. But maybe we should do that for the Fed. Let's do that for the Fed too.
Yeah.
And no waivers, for God's
Just let them
sake.
flip over.
It's just the entire economy, so don't worry about it. Without the economy, there is no nation, so it's kind of not that important.
I got one last thing for you that we
Word.
can end on to keep it nice and light, and then we can head into the real show.
Word
I've
is
been watching a show, a YouTube series
okay.
called Taste Buds, right? Taste Buds is
Yes.
hosted by Sal Volcano of Impractical Jokers.
Okay, it's your boys.
Yes, and there is another guy, Joe Dalia maybe is the guy's name, and they both pick a food that are related. I think the last one that I watched was donuts and muffins, right? And they debate very aggressively on which of these foods is superior. And during that time, there's a Twitter poll that runs, and at the end of their debate, they check the poll and whatever
See who wins.
whichever food wins. Yeah, and so that's how they do this. And it is fucking great.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of assumed that with those guys and a show named, what was it called?
Taste Buds.
Taste Buds. I thought there would be like, okay, yeah, let's do that, but every the muffin and the donut that we eat are edibles.
Nope,
Nope,
just
not at
Taste
all.
Buds, just two friends.
Yep, Snoop already did it. Can't go back to that.
Yeah, there was like mozzarella sticks versus onion rings, and
No contest.
or mozzarella sticks versus buffalo wings, and then
Oh, that's toughy.
onion rings versus French fries.
No contest.
And, shit like that. So
Yeah.
one of them was a Philly cheesesteak versus a chicken parm sandwich.
Nah, not even a question.
You know what I'm
Philly
saying?
cheesesteak all the way.
Works. So I would go
100%.
with the chicken parm. And so
No, no, not even a little bit,
so
Donovan.
you can
Jesus,
see how this would be an entertaining.
I want to do that
aspect.
show.
And they're both professional comedians.
Do they
It's
eat
fantastic.
while they
do not.
discuss? No?
They do not.
Okay.
No.
They just take them and then run with it.
Yes, it is.
God, I'm watching that shit tonight.
It's great. I cannot
sounds
recommend
great,
it enough.
man.
I cannot recommend it enough. It is absolutely hilarious.
And I hate to give it to you, but you got good viewing recommendations.
I appreciate that. I watch a lot of shit.
There you go.
I watch a lot of stuff, man. So,
Oh man.
with that,
Indeed.
I think that we can end this pre-show. I woke up this morning at 3, went to the gym,
It's because you're a beast.
feeling good. Was there till 5:30.
You said that to me last night, and I just laughed. I was like, "Yeah, bro, no."
Yeah. Yep. Woke up at 3. Got there about 3:45, and then went in. Was there till 5:30. Went to work for a couple hours. When Dax went down for his nap at 1 o'clock, I was like, yeah, I might take a nap. Like, I might need to take a nap right now. Like, I was falling
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
asleep on the couch. Then I was like, no, if I sleep for 1 hour, then I'm just going to be up at 2, and then I got to leave an hour later. I'm like, it's going to be a whole...
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of a rough one.
I drank
Naps
a
always
fast.
throw the shit off, man.
yeah, exactly. So I drank a big old cup of coffee, finished up my research, got the fuck over here. We're out here. You might tell by my bag, but by my demeanor, you would never know that I've been up since 3. We are out here.
Is that the new one? Gonna say we're out here 3 times, or?
Yeah, no, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for watching this. Obviously, this has been on our YouTube. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this at another point in time, it is either on Apple Podcast or any other place that you can find a podcast. And if you are listening to us, leave us a
Podcast.
rating and a review. Share it with your friends. If you're watching it on YouTube, like it, comment, share that video with your friends. Subscribe to us. Tell everyone about it. We have our personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. You can find all of this, saltofthestreets.com, Salt of the Streets YouTube, Instagram, Salt of the Streets, fuck Facebook, Salt of the Streets. I think that's it. Swell Blended. If you need a haircut, go see Swell Blended. Location Skate Shop, downtown. It's beautiful.
Shout out Dude's Donuts.
Yes. Shout out Dude's Donuts. Yeah, they give us another good topic this week, so we will possibly... Don't even worry about it. After that, that's it. Zeke is going to be back in a few... We're going to be back here in a few minutes with Zeke for the regular episode. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you, guys. We will see you then. Peace.